Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Intuitive Heart Healer podcast. My name is Valerie McLaughlin, and I will be your host, intuitive heart healer, energy artist, and spiritual guide. I hold space with love, helping people to connect with their heart centers so they can connect greater to spirit, live a life full of love, happiness, and joy, where they're guided by their intuition. And on today's podcast, we are going to be talking about judgment. What does judgment have to do with it? What does judgment have to do with living in your heart center from a place in love? What does judgment have to do with spirituality? Well, the answer to that is everything. When you're living in judgment, you are not living from your heart. You're living from a place in your head. You're living from your ego. You're not coming from that place of divine love, that beautiful feeling of love. When you're living in judgment, you are not fully expressing yourself and your fullest potential. And you're living more in a third dimensional space instead of allowing yourself to ascend and become more fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth dimensional beings, the amazing beings that we are, that we can create and manifest from instantaneously. But when you're living in judgment of yourself and others, you're not allowing this expansion to happen. And you're also keeping yourself in this lower vibrational field instead of raising up that vibration so that you can connect greater to source and tap more into your psychic senses, your spiritual gifts. So judgment holds us back. Remember in the first episode we talked about me hiding from my spiritual gifts and me being afraid to step into my true self and coming out as a lesbian. Those fears were all based on judgment. And at the time, it was when I was just finding out about my sexuality and just figuring out about my sexuality, I made it about what I thought other people's opinions would be, about how other people would, quote unquote, judge me. What would they think? This isn't how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be marrying a man. You're supposed to be having kids. And now when I look at it as this is how I was judging myself. Yes, based on the perspective I was coming from, based on fears that I had, but this is how I was judging myself. To me, being a lesbian was not something that was the best way to live my life at that moment. It was because I wasn't comfortable with who I was, but it was also a part of me how I judged myself in this world as a lesbian. Not so much how other people judged me. And let's think about this for a second. You grow up watching shows, and nowadays it's a little different than when I grew up in the 80s. But you grow up watching shows, and almost every single show was about a man and a woman. And if it was about somebody being gay or lesbian, they really weren't necessarily portrayed in the best life, in the best light, as living their best life. And so these were the seeds that were planted in my mind, right? So as I was learning about myself, I was seeing these versions of people that were projected onto me. And I had judgments about what that looked like. And therefore, I was judging me. Be it wrong, be it right. There's no wrong or right. There really is, just is. It's where I was at that moment. And when I came out and I would tell people, it didn't always have the most positive response. Started to really learn to realize is that they were coming from the perspective of where they were at, and they only knew what they were. So they were looking at all the things that were going to possibly happen to me or things that I would miss out, because that was the perspective that we were giving. So therefore, that's what we were judging the experience actually on. So let's also take a look at like coming in full expression of yourself. Even with my spiritual gifts, there was a lot of judgment around that. And that's why it took me a while to really tap into my psychic senses, to really be able to channel love, light language, to really express all this guidance that was coming to me, because I was judging myself, thinking that people that do this were strange and weird. So I thought people would think that I was strange and weird. And even if now I think that, let me rephrase that. Even if that is how it may seem now, like I've been on these dating apps and I start talking to people and they'd be like, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm an energy healer. I do spiritual guidance. And then it would be like crickets. And I wouldn't hear back from these people that I was having conversations with. And, the old me would have been like, what the heck? Why is this happening? See, this is what happens when you express the true version of yourself. You tell people you do these things and they judge you about, oh, you're woo-woo, or, oh, you must be floating around as a fairy, you're living in a different world. And now I look at it and I'm like, no, this is the perspective that they're coming from. Yes, they are projecting a judgment based on their experience onto me, but this isn't about me. This is about them. And I could only get to that spot when I was comfortable with not judging myself based on my own experience and being able to see things from a different perspective and a different point of view. So where are you judging yourself? And how do you notice when you are judging yourself? Well, a good place to start is to take a look at where you are judging others. It happens sometimes. Even to us spiritual people, we're still human. We ascend and become higher dimensional beings, but we still have this humanness, right? And so every once in a while, we do need to take a moment and pause and look at all the different perspectives and see where we are judging others, because where we are judging others is where we are judging ourselves. Let me say that again. Where we are judging others is where we are judging ourselves. People are the reflection of ourselves. They're reflecting back to us things that are within ourselves. So you ever have those things where you ever notice that you ever have somebody tell you something and they're like, oh my God, you have the biggest heart in the world, or you're so strong, and you're like, people keep telling me this, but I don't see it. The only reason why they're telling you this is because they are seeing that within you. You are reflecting that to them. So therefore are reflecting that back to you. So when somebody is judging you, or you see somebody judging somebody else, that's because that's something within you that you are judging others or yourself for, which is usually always judging yourself, because we are one collective consciousness. We are all connected, and therefore you judging somebody else is actually you judging yourself. I know that's a lot, right? But That's what it is. So to see where you are judging yourself and need to release judgment, one of the greatest places to start is where you are judging others. Like, oh my God, have you seen that girl in that dress? She shouldn't be wearing that. Oh my God, did you see that boy wearing lipstick? He shouldn't be wearing that. When you make comments like that, and we're not judging here, we are just bringing up some conversation of how judgments can come up. This is a judgment-free zone. This is all a love zone. Everything I'm doing and saying today is out of love. When we do that, that's where you need to pause and reflect where that is coming from and why you are judging that person. Is it because you don't feel that boys should wear lipstick? And really, what's the difference if they do or they don't? But we have these perspectives based on things that we were brought up, the way we were taught, like girls shouldn't have short hair, boys should have long hair. These are not necessarily common practices that are projected on us as much today as they were in years in the past, but they are still there. They are still subconsciously in our minds. So when you also are saying, oh, I can't believe that person is wearing that, have they looked in the mirror? Do you feel comfortable in your body the way it is? Just because you don't feel comfortable wearing a dress that looked like that doesn't mean that that person who is wearing it doesn't feel comfortable. We should be able to express ourselves fully and comfortably who we are, no matter what. That is what the divine wants from us. The divine wants us to be in full expression of ourselves. The divine does not judge us for expressing ourselves the way we do. The divine does not judge us for living the truest version of ourselves. The divine does not judge us for not being in that space yet. The divine does not judge us for being lower vibrational beings. We judge ourselves. We place judgments on others because we are not comfortable with ourselves. So, what does judgment have to do with living in your heart space? What does judgment have to do with spirituality? Like I said in the beginning, it has to do with everything. Because as you move into this space of love and compassion, you begin to release these judgments. You begin to understand that these judgments are actually just programs that have been taught to us over and over and over, and they have become beliefs. We believe them to be true. But are they really true? No, they're not. They are illusions that we tell ourselves and people have told us. And now it's time to release those illusions, to change our story, to raise our vibration, to be higher dimensional beings, and to live in this life in our hearts from a place of love. So how do we release these judgments? Well, first you have to become aware of them, right? If you're not aware of it, it's hard to change something if you're not aware of it. So, like I said, look at where you're going with others. Take a moment to pause and reflect on where this is coming from. And once you begin to see where this story is coming from, then you can start to see that story from other perspectives. And that's when you begin to realize that they are not true. And you start to let them go. So why did people stop talking to me on these apps when I was talking to them? It's because they were not comfortable with themselves. And as long as I'm comfortable with myself, That's all that matters. And when they are ready, they will become comfortable with the truth of who they are, whatever that truth is. So I broke through a lot of judgment, especially when I began to channel. When I started channeling this love light language, which I'm assuming will be a podcast at some point, I had so much fear that people would think I'm crazy, that I didn't know what I was doing. But the biggest thing that I had to get over was looking through other people's eyes and not looking through my eyes. I knew in my heart what I was channeling and what I was feeling. And I had to look through my eyes and not other people's eyes. And I knew that there was a greater message out there that had to be brought to all of you. You know, like doing this podcast. You know, I had to stop judging myself like I didn't have anything important to say. We all have something important to say. We all have a purpose here. And knowing that purpose and being connected to it is huge. And it takes time to get there. So let's do an exercise on releasing judgment. Okay? So close your eyes. If you're driving, obviously, don't close your eyes. You know, come back to this at another time. But if you can at this moment, take a moment and close your eyes. And I want you to think of a time, bring yourself to a time actually, of where you actually judged somebody else for something. Whether it's what they wore, how they talked, how they walked, what they said, their voice, their looks, doesn't matter. Remember, we're judgment-free zone. This is all done from a place of love to bring us all more into our heart space. And I want you to bring yourself to that spot where you were judging somebody. And I want you to take yourself out of your physical body. And look at your physical body. And I want you to see what you're seeing from that perspective. How do you look? How do you talk? What are you thinking at this moment? What are you feeling at this moment looking at yourself? And then I want you to fly above and look down. And I want you to, again, see yourself from this perspective. What do you see? What illusions are being revealed to you now as you step out of your body and you take a look at this whole situation? Are you judging yourself for the way you look? Are you judging your voice because it sounds too masculine or too feminine or too soft? What are you judging yourself for? Have you gotten the answers? Do you know what that judgment is? Can you see where those judgments come from? Did somebody, when you were younger, used to make fun of you because of something? Or did you hear somebody talking about how somebody else's looks are, and maybe that's where you gain that perspective from? We're not judging them. We're not judging where it comes from. We just are observing where these are coming from. So now that you have all the pieces to the puzzle at this moment. Flying high above the sky. I want you to imagine that you are sending your human self love, that beautiful, divine, loving light. And as you're sending them love, you're also erasing all those stories attached to that judgment. Clearing away all that is no longer serving you. And by clearing away this judgment, you're allowing yourself to step up with confidence, security, knowing that it is safe to be who you are. Lifting the veil of illusions that have been created for you. Take a minute, breathe that in. And then I want you to come back into your body. Feel yourself coming back in. And when you're ready, open up your eyes and come back into the space. That's a good practice for you to begin to do so that you can start to see all the different sides and all these different stories that are actually really attached to these illusions that are attached to these judgments. Because we are in this process right now of ascending, of raising our vibration, of connecting more and with each other on a higher dimension. You know, this third dimension that I had talked about earlier, the judgment being a third dimension, and that doorway has shut. We are not coming into this world anymore as third dimensional beings. The new generation that's coming here are not coming here with the fears and judgments and that lower vibrational energy by not letting go, forgiveness. They're coming in here in a different perspective and more of a fourth dimensional beings. And they've already released these things so that they can be higher dimensional. And we are now playing catch up, right? We're now playing catch up to begin to release this. And to release this allows us to become more fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional, seventh dimensional. And these amazing creators and co-creators of our lives. Because as we release them, we don't have these blockages holding us down. Think of the judgment and the guilt and the fear. Those are like weights holding you down. And as you begin to let them, you lift up, you rise up, and you enter into your heart. And that's where we want to be. We want to be a society that's living in our heart. But if we're not there yet, that's okay too. Because remember, we all have a purpose. We all have an important part to play. There is no right or wrong way of being. We will all get there in our divine time when the timing's right. So I want to know your experiences with judgment. I want to know how You are releasing judgment, and I want to know how judgment is showing up to you. What are you learning from judgment? How are you growing from this judgment that you're learning about? Because that's what we do. We grow from this. We grow from our lessons. And as we grow, we rise up. We become a society that's more compassionate, more loving, filled with love and light. Connected to our spiritual gifts, our psychic senses, being guided by our source, by our angels, by God, by the Creator. It's a beautiful life we are here to live. Now let's get to living it. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, intuitivehearthealer.com. I am also on Instagram at Intuitive Heart Healer, and a Facebook group, Intuitive Heart Healer, which I do daily guidance in that group. It's a wonderful group for you to all join. And I also just kicked off a Pride store with my Energy Art Pride store, which I'm very proud of. And I have some more great designs coming to the store. It's called rainbowhearthealer.com. Go grab your Love is One t-shirt, and a portion of that proceeds will go to an LGBTQ nonprofit. Thank you all for joining me today. I am so happy to be your host and so happy to spend this time with you. I'm spreading all my love out to all of you. Until next time, go out and spread love in the world. Like and subscribe to my podcast so you can be more connected with me and we can have this beautiful time together. Have a beautiful day, spreading all my love to you. Bye for now.